Capsule.
All right, today we are diving into the story of a young lord who was given a pile of dirt and a power that everyone called useless, and somehow he used it to build a legendary, unbeatable fortress.
So, imagine this. You're a child prodigy, you're the great hope of your noble family, and then, at just 8 years old, they throw you out. That's exactly what happened to our guy, Van Nye Fertio. He was shipped off to the middle of nowhere and basically expected to just fail. But, as you'll see, what his family saw as a huge weakness was actually his greatest strength.
So, how in the world does a kid go from being a genius to a total outcast? Well, it all kicks off with Van's pretty bizarre early life and a society that is obsessed with a very, very specific kind of power.
Now, here's the twist. Van isn't your typical kid. He's actually a guy from modern-day Japan who got reincarnated into this new world with all of his memories totally intact. And that knowledge from his past life, it explains everything. It's why at age 2, he's having complex conversations, and why by 5, he's so good with a sword he can actually hold his own against trained soldiers. To his family, he was a miracle, right up until the day of his magical appraisal.
See, in Van's world, your magic pretty much defines your worth. And for a hardcore military family like the Fertios, it's all about combat. They want those big, flashy elemental powers, fire, wind, water, earth. That's what matters. But Van, he gets appraised with production magic, which is the ability to, well, create things. In a world that values blowing things up, the power to build is seen as completely, utterly worthless.
And this quote from his own father, it just says it all, doesn't it? The disappointment was instant, and it was brutal. For Marquis Spartario, who built his family's entire reputation on military strength, having a son with crafting magic was the ultimate shame. Van wasn't just a letdown, he was a stain on the family name.
So what's the punishment for this failure? Exile. At just 8 years old, Van is stripped of his name and his status and sent to rule over some remote, nameless village on the absolute edge of the map. It's a political dead end, a place you send people to forget they exist. He leaves with just a handful of loyal followers sent off to fade away.
But, being forgotten is about the last thing that actually happens. Van's new life kicks off the second he gets there, and it starts with a real baptism by fire.
Seriously, the carriage hasn't even rolled to a complete stop before they realize the village is already under siege. And we're not talking about a couple of random thugs here. This is a full-on, coordinated attack by dozens of experienced bandits, complete with their own archers and mages. For any other 8-year-old, this is game over. For Van, it's just his first day on the job. So, after they manage to survive that insane welcome party, Van Mysicek immediately gets to work, and his approach is just pure genius. First, he cuts the villagers' taxes in half, a brilliant move that wins him their loyalty right off the bat. Then, he combines his production magic with his modern understanding of infrastructure and just does the impossible. He creates brand new, sturdy homes, a massive defensive wall, and digs a deep moat around the whole place. In just a few days, he turns a helpless little settlement into a proper fortress. Okay, so the village is secure. But now Van has to tackle his next big challenge, turning this poor, isolated backwater into a booming economic hub.
And this, right here, is where his so-called useless production magic really gets to shine. Adventurers find rare ores, including mithril, in the woods nearby, so Van uses his magic to craft weapons of absolutely unbelievable quality. The first merchants who visit are just blown away and agree to set up a permanent trade route on the spot. But he doesn't stop there. He builds a massive waterway and an artificial lake which not only improves daily life, but also attracts the Akpalu, a tribe of aquatic demihumans who end up becoming his newest allies.
The result is just a total 180. What was once a nameless, forgotten village is now this bustling, fortified town with a growing economy, a diverse population, and a leader whose useless magic is turning out to be the most valuable power anyone's ever seen.
But of course, that kind of rapid growth, it gets noticed. And this new fortress is about to face its biggest tests yet, against threats that are way, way worse than a few bandits. First up, a stampede. 40, count 'em, 40 giant armored lizards. These are beasts whose hides are supposedly as tough as steel, and they are charging straight for the village walls. This is the kind of force that could wipe out a small army, and it's headed right for them. So what's Van's answer to this overwhelming horde? Just 60. 60 custom-made ballista bolts.
The villagers, now armed with these incredible weapons their young lord designed and built himself, get ready to defend their new home against what looks like impossible odds.
And the result is absolutely stunning. 0 villager casualties. Not a single person gets hurt. Van's magically crafted bolts punch right through the lizard's supposedly impenetrable armor with ease. The entire horde is just annihilated. His fortress held, and his useless magic proved to be a devastatingly effective weapon.
But just as the villagers are celebrating their incredible victory, an even bigger menace shows up. A massive forest dragon, a monster straight out of legend, descends on the village, threatening to burn down everything Van has built.
Now, taking down a dragon takes more than just good weapons. This victory was a genuine team effort. Van's ballista were crucial for punching through its tough scales from a distance, but it was the combined power of his allies, Viscount Panamera's fire magic, his butler Esparta's earth walls for defense, and the Knight D landing the final sword strikes that finally brought the beast down. It just goes to show he's not just an inventor, he's a leader who knows how to bring people together.
So, after surviving monsters and building a thriving city from scratch, the 8-year-old exile is no longer some failure to be hidden away. He's now a power you have to deal with.
The neighboring noble, Viscount Panamera, who, by the way, was originally sent to spy on Van as a potential threat, is so impressed by what he sees that he swears a formal political alliance with him. I mean, for an 8-year-old exile, that's a massive, unprecedented political win. It proves his worth on a national stage.
Ultimately, Van's whole story really proves a powerful point, right? His journey from being a rejected kid to a respected leader shows that real power isn't about the label you're given at birth. It's about the ingenuity, the leadership, and the sheer grit you use to build your own future.
And the story wraps up with a huge public celebration. Van and his loyal friends are honored as heroes for taking down the dragon. The outcast child is now officially recognized, celebrated, and his reputation as a capable and heroic lord is cemented for all to see.
And that leaves us with one final, fascinating question to chew on. Van took the useless land and the useless magic his family dumped on him and built an absolute powerhouse. So, what happens when the Marquis who called him a failure finally finds out what his forgotten son has really become?
Plot Capsule